What's up everyone, it's Dr. Hish. Here are the 3 biggest mistakes that I see dentists make when they're doing composite bonding early on without much experience. The first thing I notice about dentists that have just started doing composite bonding is they are afraid to get the fast handpiece out and afraid to use that tapered burr and file the margins or file the line angles. It takes practice. They're scared that they're going to gouge the tooth out and have to do all the composite again in that region. I see this so much. I've seen so many cases where patients have come to me and their gums were inflamed because the margins weren't polished, because the dentist didn't go around with a fine tapered burr and a fine diamond burr and clean out the excess composite from the margins or rough margins, and it can be really damaging. Adding on to that, like a second part of that first point that I made is in between the teeth, they are not doing enough interproximal polishing. The biggest tip I've got for that to fix it is actually using a metal strip, like a metal IPR strip. A single-sided one would do fine, would basically allow you to then use your epitech strips to get through more easily, because sometimes you put the epitech strip in, it rips, and then I feel like doing it for whatever reason. But if you just go in first with a single-sided diamond metal strip, you'll do fine, and it will pave the way for the rest of the strips to go through. The second biggest mistake that I noticed dentists doing with composite bonding is taking too much time on the placement and not leaving enough time on the shaping/polishing stages. The placement of composite should be the quickest, most easiest part of the treatment. You should actually be spending most of your time on the shaping of it and then the polishing, of course, through the protocol. But I'd say shaping is the most important step, because that's ultimately what's going to impact the result the most. So what I see is dentists adding a little bit at a time. Just go for it. Just get a big block on, use your fingers. Sometimes if you do things a little quick and swiftly, like you've got a gun against your head, you can actually achieve a lot more than you think in that time. And there's nothing wrong with keeping the patient in the chair for less time, because no patient wants to be in the chair for 6 hours while you do 8 composite bonds. You could do it in under 2 hours if you do it properly and if you practice. So the second biggest mistake I see is dentists not spending enough time on their patients in the shaping stages and spending far too much time just placing. The third biggest mistake that you can make with your composite bonding is skipping discs. So when it comes to polishing and shaping then polishing, you obviously start with your most coarse disc. There's a reason why if you rush the polishing stage, when you use that black disc, you'll see all the little imperfections reveal themselves. When that powder builds up in the dots and the air blows form, that's telling you that, hey, polish me more, like, hey, pick me, like hit me, then you get it out. And then you move into the next thing that you see, and you don't stop until you've cleared everything out. When you go to the next disc in the sequence, if it's whatever the sequence is that you use, it's a slightly less coarse version, you will then see more stuff get revealed. The finer imperfections start to come out. And then the same thing happens again. You go in that same cycle. You then buff all of them out. You fix all those little imperfections. And the same thing with the next disc. More little imperfections come out. And eventually what you get is the polishing. I personally use rubber wheels. I use the Eve rubber discs, the pink one and the beige one. It's a finisher. And once I've gotten down to them, it's a mirror finish. But if you skip the prior discs, for example, if you go with the first 2 and skip the third one and go straight to the last one, you miss the imperfections that the third disc was going to reveal, because the last polishing, the last ones that are after that, will not necessarily reveal those imperfections, because those imperfections have a similar size to the grain or the grit in microns of the disc that is in the sequence. So if you skip a disc, you skip a size of grain and you skip that, all those imperfections, they basically get missed. So the biggest mistake is skipping discs. Don't do it. Learn to get through them quicker and get all the imperfections cleared for each round of discs quicker. Think of it like 4 or 5 rounds of 3 minutes of disc work, whatever you want to call it, but just don't skip a disc, because you'll end up with a result which looks far less polished. And you can buff and it will not get better because you skip discs earlier on. One of the best tricks for composite bonding to make sure that everything from the front looks symmetrical, looks uniform, and the teeth harmonize in the arch form really nicely is getting an occlusal mirror, a big one, basically the ones that are the size of this card, and placing it inside the patient's mouth and looking up the teeth. And when you look up the teeth, you will see an angle that you can't see when you look directly at the teeth. You will see little areas of extra volume or less volume. You will see asymmetries. You will see shape differences, and that's when you go in with your discs and you buff them out and you balance everything. And I think that when I started doing this, the result from the front just looked like perfection, because that's one angle that nobody can really see without a mirror, a big one. And if you use a little mirror, well, you're going to see 1 or 2 teeth at a time, see the full arch, like you have to. So So that's a huge trick, and it's a trick that's improved my composite bonding massively. So yeah, I hope you found that useful. I'm going to be releasing lots of tricks, tips on cosmetic dental procedures, as well as dental business tricks in the future as well. Things I've learned along the way from different mentors, from my own experiences in setting up my own business. And if you want to stay tuned, turn on the notifications, subscribe to my channel. And if you have any suggestions or videos that you want me to make to discuss any specific topics, drop it in the comments below or drop me a direct message and I'll be sure to cover that topic with you in the next video.